Welcome back to another exciting episode of Expo and all things STEM. Today we have two very interesting guests on our show. We have Katie Torino and Melissa Roper. All right, almost got it. Melissa Panchuk-Roper. And these ladies are both from the Riverbend Montessori School. And they are going to be participating in the 2017 Expo. So we're very excited to hear all about what they're doing over there these days. So tell us, give us a little bit of your background and how you got interested in these kinds of issues, STEM issues, and your work with the Riverbend Montessori School. Go ahead, Katie, start, please.
Sure. So my first job out of college was in the technology industry, and I worked in tech for about 8 years before moving into education. For over a decade, I was in higher education, mostly in the MBA sphere, but in the last 4 years have moved into elementary education, and this has been a wonderful opportunity to bring in the experiences across my career.
So give us a little background on your official title at the school and what you do with regards to STEM.
Sure. So I am the Director of Outreach, and right now my focus is on development and marketing for the school. Last year I was a member of the Technology Committee, and the Technology Committee was involved in a number of technology improvements as well as the inaugural year for our Design Lab.
Wow, Design Lab, that sounds fancy. All right, we'll get back to that one. All right, go ahead, Melissa.
Thanks. Well, I have been in education since I graduated college more years ago than I'm going to reveal, and I've been in K-12 since the beginning. I was a history teacher for a long time, and I ran a studio-based classroom, meaning that students created exhibition projects to connect them to the items we were studying, and from that, around 2005, 2006, I noticed students really gravitating more towards STEM areas and wanting to create websites, robots, just fabricate things for these projects. So I started learning how to do that. And then eventually I moved into a technology integration specialist role at my previous school, where I was more of a consultant for classrooms grades 5 through 9. I worked with those teachers in helping them develop STEM-based projects. And here at the Riverbend School, I'm the innovation coordinator, so I established the Riverbend Design Lab last year, and I teach 15 classes out of that, and also work to integrate STEM into various classrooms outside of the Design Lab.
So you're not busy at all?
No, it just doesn't feel like it. The kids are great.
Excellent. Good to know. Good to know. Wow, that's really exciting. So did both of you see yourselves doing what you're currently doing when you were kids and growing up? Did either of you want to be a rock star?
That would be
yeah.
She does play the drums.
Yeah.
So that's
excellent. Well, you're still rock stars, just in a slightly different sense, right?
Well, growing up, I wanted to be a teacher for the longest time, and then also as technology was just growing, engineering and science and innovation, really got more and more interested in that, and my first job out of school was a great way for me to pull a number of those skills together.
On the other hand, my entire family is involved in education, so I did not want to do that. I actually wanted to be an elderly advocate, get into elder law, and that didn't change until my junior year of college, when I was sort of thought about, oh, well, law school, that's 3 more years of school, some tuition, additional tuition. Why don't I do something here that I could also use right out of college? And I fell in love with the program. I fell in love with teaching. I always say that if there was something I was going to inherit genetically, it hopefully was the education gene. So
I was just going to say,
I didn't want to admit it until I was in my 20s. But
just going to say the pre-programming kind of might have taken over.
Exactly.
Right.
So I've never left ever since I first set foot in the classroom. So.
Right. And where were you before Riverbend?
I was at the Fessenden School for 15 years.
Oh wow! Look at that. How exciting. Alrighty. But you really have a very long credential list for being in education and doing what you do.
Yeah.
So they're very lucky to have you at Riverbend.
Oh, thanks.
And for an outreach perspective, how excited are you to be part of Expo again this year?
It's fantastic. It's a great opportunity for us to showcase a lot of the movement that we've made in innovation at Riverbend, specifically in the STEM areas, and it's really exciting.
Yeah, and what are some of the other outreach things that you participate in terms of STEM activities that Riverbend does, just off the top of your head?
Well, so we have a number of different things that we do at the school, and Melissa will talk a little bit more about last year's probably marquee event was Shark Tank. So we had our 7th and 8th graders showcase products that they had developed within the classroom and through the D-Lab.
And you had your own version of Shark Tank, or did you take the kids to the show?
No, we had our own version.
Right. next year.
Though I will,
Yeah.
some of the sharks that we had
Yeah.
Would have done just fine alongside my
Right.
Cubans.
Yeah,
I
we're going to
think,
send this
absolutely.
video to the Shark Tank people
Yes.
so they can see that you're interested. You have some budding geniuses at the Riverbend
We
School who
certainly
are
do.
interest, have interest with all their new developments, that their experiments and their
Yeah.
ideas that they're working on, right? Like the stuff that I see on the table here.
Yeah.
It never ceases to amaze me what like the kindergarten through like first graders can come up with.
Absolutely.
I know. So tell us about D-Lab. What does D-Lab stand for?
D-Lab stands for Design Lab. It's a lowercase d. It's sort of a nod toward Stanford's design thinking program, their D school that they have. It's inspired by the MIT Media Lab, New View Studio, and Stanford's Design Studio. So, and in the sense that it teaches design thinking, it encourages fabrication of all types, modes, etc., in students grades 1 through 8 at this point. And we have had a couple of outreaches into the Children's House.
So tell me again the age range, grades what?
The classes are for grades 2nd through 8th this year. I also work with some first graders and some kindergartners at sort of more unofficial capacity, and I've done some work in the Children's House with the pre-LE classroom and one of the primary groups.
Right.
So
That's so interesting. So I have a little bit of a tough question for you.
Uh-oh.
All right. So just a little one. So I'm pretty sure that you must have a kindergarten, first grader, or second grader student who said to you, "Well, I want to design something fairly impossible, and why can't I do it? Why not?" And then how do you answer that question?
it's a great question. One of the things that's so beautiful about working with children of all ages is their ideas always reach for the sky, right?
Right.
You know, I have not had to teach any tinkering, and also part of a Montessori classroom. Students have sort of naturally been encouraged to try and iterate without sort of the confines of a typical classroom. And so I realized that actually the day I taught a demo lesson when I was interviewing for the job, I said, geez, I'm not going to have to encourage students or remind them how to be creative. It's not an issue here. So the ideas are quite grand, and one of my jobs is to really help each student distill down their ideas. You know, we have a 4th grader who wants to create a robot, has a lot of ideas about the functions that the robot should have. So my job is to bring that idea down into some sort of skill that student can practice that will lead them towards developing the robot. So for this particular robot, I'm thinking of this 4th grade pair. The robot needs to be able to sense distance. The robot needs to be able to go upstairs. And then we start thinking, well, if it needs to do that, then what kind of tools do you need to be able to create this? What kind of skills do you need? Oh, you need to know how to program. Okay. Oh, you've never programmed before. All right. So how can we start you with understanding programming and the kind of thinking that that you need to do to be able to effectively communicate directions to a robot? Then we would also work on the physical aspects, the robotics pieces. Do you know how a circuit works? Do you understand polarity? Can you solder and build those skills? So we might create a very simple version of a robot first, but that's a robot that can be built upon in years to come. And one of the great things about working with students at Riverbend is I have these students year after year after year, so there's continuity. I have some students who are continuing projects that they began fall of 2015 because we have that opportunity. They don't, we have that sort of both in their classroom and in the D-Labs.
I can assure you that if someone had asked me, do you know how to fix polarity when I was in first grade, I probably would have asked them if that was a kind of fruit.
Well,
so that's, that's very impressive just to see that what kids can grasp and understand.
Absolutely.
And what's in their common vernacular these days with regard to STEM.
Yeah.
It's such a change.
And it's really, that's one of the exciting things as a teacher is, and that's what I loved about teaching history too. I mean, we used to joke about all these, how do you make old dead guys exciting? How do you make them relevant?
Now that's a question.
Right. It is.
That's really a big question.
It's really gratifying, especially as someone who enjoys being creative personally and creating, being able to figure out, okay, this is an idea. How can I build the scaffold from this place up here where most of the students are flying in terms of their ideas and bring it down into the weeds and make sure there's a real logical scaffold for those students to be able to achieve what they want, because there's nothing more empowering than a student having an idea and actually being able to create it and make it real.
Right, and from your perspective, because you also have a background in history as a history teacher, so from your perspective, how do you keep a student's interest? When they do a project halfway and then decide, well, the weeds are too difficult and the details are too intense, and I'm not interested in completing this project. Do you let them sort of shift to something else, or do you try to motivate them to finish?
That can be really challenging, especially I'd say in the age range of maybe 4th to 6th grade. I find continuity can be can be a challenge, especially from everything, even from the way the calendar works at the school. You miss 3 classes in a row, all of a sudden the student gets out of the zone that they're in, and they may not feel as interested in creating something. Really try to emphasize the iterative process. So if something isn't working for a student, then I do almost exclusively one-on-one work with students, even within their classes. So I'm constantly conferencing. I feel like I have about 67 independent projects going on at one time.
It keeps you in shape.
Right, at least mentally.
You can skip the gym after.
Right. But that really understanding who that student is and what their passions are. I think of a group of 4th graders who had been struggling with coming up with an idea for their project. I had some of them fill out a very structured brainstorm, and that we had a conversation about what is something that really makes you mad? What is really something that really excites you? At school, what's something that you particularly love about your day? And just getting these pieces of information about what excites them. I mean, I feel like one of my strengths as an educator is I can turn anything into a meaningful project. I just need that to help with the personal connection with the students. So when students give me that kind of information, we have conversations. We're really able to build on their passions, because passion-based learning, people talk about PBL all the time in education, project-based learning, but I think passion-based learning, passion should really be the P.
Right.
And that the idea that true grit comes, I think, in students from encouraging students to iterate and make those small adjustments, not bang their head against the wall trying to do the same thing over and over again if it's not working. So having that flexibility and allowing students to pursue a passion, but it might look different than what it felt like 3 or 4 weeks ago, and that's okay.
Right.
And I think this is why the relationship between innovation and Montessori is so powerful and strong, because the values of Montessori help students to work through their mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes. They're learning all of these critical thinking and problem skills as a function of Montessori itself. So to be able to pull innovation and Montessori together, I think allows for the students to be more comfortable with overcoming some of those challenges.
Right. And it's really on the model, based on the model that school is an experiment rather than a chore.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just very cool.
Yeah.
And I should have a small shout out to the classroom teachers I work with, because without their input and feedback about their students and them inviting me into their classrooms to work on things that are directly connected to their in-class curriculum, I wouldn't have such an easy path to connect with students' passions as I do. So it's really in large part due to their openness and collaborative spirit that that's able to happen. So
very nice. Awesome. And they already have a very busy schedule. So I'm sure their day is packed.
It is.
So, that's pretty cool. So do you take time out to study what each class is doing? And then you know when the teacher wants you to come in, and then you can sort of integrate.
Yeah, it's sort of, at this point, it's because it's in its early phases, that sort of technology integration specialist aspect of my role as innovation coordinator. It's been sort of by just casual conversations with teachers. Hey, I heard I think I heard you next door talking about mussels. Right. Oh, did you know that we could make these circuits where you put little suction pads on different muscles, and then students can flex that muscle and see a graph on the computer. Oh, really? Well, could that be a fun way for your students to identify where their different muscle groups are?
Sure.
It's just sort of picking up in
Right.
places, and once you have one connection like that, it's really easy to make more with teachers. Especially teachers have been so open about finding ways that we might be able to cross-pollinate.
Right.
So.
Right, and I see that technology is a large part of the innovation coordination that goes on.
Absolutely.
So you're using all these different kinds of technologies to enhance STEM
Everything-
understanding and appreciation.
Yep. Everything from information literacy, so using devices to help students understand what kind of information they're getting and the quality, all the way to programming, robotics, other types of things you'd more typically think of in a technology program.
Nice. So exciting. All right, so before, I could talk to you forever, but I really want to get to these things on the table that you have.
So
Because those wires
a lot
look
of random
very
wires.
exciting, and those markers.
So this, I don't want to reveal too much
Yes.
because
I know, just give us a little bit of a spoiler.
But I mentioned I teach
Right.
basically 6-year-olds all the way through 15-year-olds.
Right.
So there's a range of things that
There's
you
a
would
range
say-
of innovation.
Yes, exactly, and sort of ability to produce, or I don't want to say ability, but skills that they've gathered, and I don't
Right.
solder with 2nd graders.
Right.
I do
That's
the
a good
soldering
thing.
for them. Right.
good
So
to know.
they watch, with their safety glasses.
Yes,
but,
I like
there's-
the idea of
there
safety
is some
first.
differentiation in that sense. They do hug glue. Anyway, so there, and one thing that Montessori really emphasizes is, I think, is that like Katie was saying, the iterative process. So we're going to have projects there that are in various stages of iteration, but are still represent the value of hands-on work with materials.
Right.
And
is this a little teaser for Expo?
it absolutely is.
Oh,
Yes,
excellent.
yes.
Love
Yeah.
that. All right.
So, and so I'm not going to do too much
All
with them,
right.
but I have some just some really typical projects that students have completed. This was so my 2nd graders. This is the first year I have them in
Right.
class, so we do some work with understanding how circuits work and beginning to understand programming. And
Right.
we start with the idea of physically programming something. So how can I give a dumb robot, in this case it's a scribble bot, what can I do to this to change its output? Because essentially that's what you're doing in programming and eventually coding, is giving something directions and hopefully effectively to get it to do something you want, whether it's something on a computer screen or an actual robot.
Right.
So this is you can DIY. We got the 2nd grader made this in 45 minutes.
wow.
It's a bunch of markers. We have a hobby motor. We use, again, we don't solder, so we have the alligator
Yeah.
clips connecting here. Just a little
Very
battery
nice.
pack.
And what does this little dually do on the end?
It's a glue stick,
Oh,
a
okay.
little for a hot glue gun. And
Okay.
the idea is that when you turn this on, and we can draw with these at the Expo,
Yes.
or maybe make your own.
I'm walking
but
over to that exhibit. I'm going to try to
this
draw with
glue
that.
stick, because it's offset on the motor, when the motor spins,
Yeah.
it will vibrate, and the
Ah.
vibrations, when the caps are off the markers, will create art if you put a piece of paper
Right
or
down,
anything under here.
right.
And so what's interesting is challenging the students to adjust where the marker position is, where is the motor on the cup, so that weight changes. How much do you offset that glue stick? All of
Right.
those
So it's like a counterbalance. The glue stick
Exactly.
is a little counterbalance to
Absolutely.
keep it in the right area that you want it to be in.
So you can tell you're a biologist.
So I'm trying to interpret this very interesting
But
design
it,
here.
these
It's very
ideas
cool.
of, one is tinkering, and two
Yeah.
is how can I adjust my commands if I want a certain result, and
Right.
what if I put 3 of these together? What would happen? So that's an easy DIY project. That it gives students a real introduction to tinkering, and this is a robot. It's just not a smart robot.
And DIY is design.
DIY, do it yourself.
Do it yourself. Okay, good. I thought it was like another
Hashtag
like
DIY.
yeah, because I know like design your interests or
Well, actually, that's
yeah,
I
or
like that better.
I just thought of like very complicated like 5
I think you need
extra
to
things
copyright
that
that
could
one.
yeah.
Hashtag DIY.
Because I love the titles we have at Montessori. I like the innovation coordinator. That just sounds so impressive.
Well,
I love that title. And they have to adopt that and use it for other things.
You
that
can.
are, yeah,
Yes.
just. And what are the little Lego pieces
so
for?
this is whoops. So the upper elementary students who are 4th through 6th
Right.
grade, they after doing a sort of boot camp at the beginning of the
Yeah.
year, where
Yeah.
we sort of get a baseline for skills and
Right.
vocabulary that we're going to
Uh-huh.
be using during the school year. They then
Right.
design a project that they sort of have 3 sets of skills, and they have to choose at least one from each
Right.
of those sets, so I can be sure that they're both
Right.
working with sort of digital media type technology skills, and then maker, programming, fabrication, electronic skills, and then a little research capsule.
Right.
So
Katie,
this,
would you
sorry.
move that skateboard
sorry.
over just a
Don't worry,
little
it
towards
won't
you?
fall.
Yeah,
Sorry.
just so we can see the little Lego pieces here. Yeah.
So this student, he wanted to design a custom Lego set because he loves Legos, and he
Right.
wanted to be able to create one that had a campsite theme. So I just brought in some of the examples. So these are ones that he designed himself and 3D printed. He has a variety of others that he took home with him.
So he wanted specific sizes and shapes.
Yes, that
and
Lego
depths
doesn't make.
That Lego doesn't
Yeah,
make.
so these ones actually build right onto existing Legos, and these are ones. Yeah, these are ones that are ones by Lego that are copyrighted.
Regular Lego
Yes.
pieces.
So
It's hard to
and these
tell
are
the
printed,
difference. They look
right.
so identical.
Yeah.
And
almost,
so,
right?
so he's part of when his project
Yeah.
is complete at his exhibition. He will have the actual set built where you'll have Legos integrated with
Yeah.
his Legos, in a completely
Right.
sort of custom.
Very nice.
Custom set. So, and then these.
So he just essentially filled in the missing blanks for himself.
He did, yeah.
That's
Yep.
good. That's
And
good.
and yes, and then these are 2 projects from Shark Tank last year, 2 prototypes. We call them garage prototypes very lovingly, because we do use a lot
Right.
of duct tape and
Right.
cardboard.
Well, that
in the
is where
D-Lab.
Apple started. So
Right,
yeah.
right, yep. And
You know.
as did our keynote speaker at
garage
Shark Tank
prototype.
last year.
Yeah.
So that was actually one of my favorite things, and you can say cut if this is going too long, but
No, not at all. You have
about
time.
Shark Tank last year is our keynote speaker, one of Katie's brother-in-law, who he designed. He had worked in the military and doing sort of VR, right? for the-
Military applications of virtual reality.
Very nice.
And then he applied it to baseball. It's a company called Hit Tracks
All right, you have to say that one more time. What was that again? Military applications?
of virtual reality.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yep.
And
And
how
then-
old is this child? In what grade?
Oh, this is her
my
brother-in-law who
Oh,
spoke
He
at
was
our
the
Shark
keynote
Tank.
speaker last year.
Oh, very
Yes.
nice. Okay,
Yeah.
that's that. Phew. All right. So I had like one of your like
Oh, no.
second graders, like
Well, no, but he took what he
Yeah.
learned and applied it to baseball, and he now has this this virtual reality, baseball batting cage
very cool.
that is
Okay.
used by major league teams. And
Oh,
so
I see
what
where
the
this is
best part
going.
of his speech was he started talking about how he built his first version in his garage.
Gosh, I
And
see.
all of the students were like, wait a minute, but
Right.
so we're doing the same thing, so you
Right.
mean it starts exactly the way I am.
Did you take a survey of how many kids went home and asked their parents to empty out their garages?
Oh, I didn't.
Anybody
I
take
should
that
have.
poll? Because-
Maybe we will this year.
Right.
No, but one of the things that I do after school
Right.
is teach a movie makers class.
Ah, okay.
And next week's project was the inspiration of 2 of our students. We're going to be designing our own virtual reality movie that we can use, that we can view using the D-Lab virtual reality goggles. And one of our students has an RC car where mounting a 360 camera on the top and going around the Riverbend campus. So we'll have a virtual reality film of.
We can immerse you in our playground.
Yeah.
I would like to be in there.
I would not complain.
So this is one of this actually, we already have a buyer for when this project is
I see.
complete. It's called the Alarm Mat, and this was born from each student to begin this had to identify a problem that they wanted to create a product or service to address. So we were working on entrepreneurialism last year as part of this middle school 7th and 8th grade project. And so essentially what this is a pressure mat, a pressure sensor that when you step on it, the circuit closes and the alarm buzzes. And this was designed for themselves because they have trouble getting up in the morning. And they thought that one way that might help them is if they had to actually stand up to shut off their alarm and become physically active. They were really annoyed this fall when a Kickstarter campaign started for a very similar
product.
yes, and they felt like they were just on the cusp of a real breakthrough.
Yeah.
But I told them, we don't want monopolies in the market. There's room for more competition. So what they are working, if they are to continue this project, they'd like to add an Arduino, a microcomputer, where they can program sort of set the maximum or minimum weight that has to be applied to this for it to actually shut off.
So then you wouldn't
And
be able to
there's a
have
stick.
a stick attached
Right,
to
exactly.
a cup
Well,
that you can use to poke
Yes.
that
Yeah.
mat at the
See?
bottom of
Yeah.
your bed
See how
while you're
innovation-
still in
yep.
bed. So
Yep.
you'd have to have like a certain, it has to
See
be
how
an
innovation is
excess
born,
of,
though?
Yeah,
These
yeah.
of 20
Yes.
pounds.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe they'll have a Rube Goldberg machine set up
Yeah.
behind their bed and they can drop a
That's
bomb.
that's the next.
Which would be
That's the.
But
yeah,
they- see,
excellent.
yeah.
I love that. And so I wanted to just loop back to your brother-in-law.
Sure.
So he was one of the judges on
He was
your
a judge.
Keynote speaker
the
and a
keynote
judge.
speaker
Yeah.
for the Shark Tank program that you
Yeah.
folks had at the school.
So this was one
And
of
it was
those-
wonderful. We gave these students not an opportunity, both to present their designs, to pitch them to the
Right,
sharks and
sharks.
gain funding, but then also Mike came in and spoke about how he came up with Hit Tracks and his journey as a source of inspiration for the students. So.
Excellent.
And we do have,
Is this like, so how does this work? Like, how do you
Oh.
need an energy source? Is
I
there,
do.
is
Well,
it
there is
battery?
there is a power source here.
Okay.
When we connect it to the Arduino, it will be we'll have a different power
Right.
source.
And then
but,
you put this right at the foot of your bed where you would stand up
Yes, and
normally in the morning?
part
or-
of what they want to add is a Bluetooth shield to make it so that it could connect with their iPhone alarm. So that's definitely we're a few months out from that.
Right, I'm sure there's not a product like that on the market. Because this is like, this is time lapse, right? So first your iPhone alarm would go off and
Yeah.
then the mat would start buzzing. So
That's true.
that's just,
And then it brings us to the skateboard. This was born from a seventh grader's desire for an electric skateboard, but realizing that many of them are incredibly expensive. So
Right.
he just retrofitted a normal skateboard with, it's a little ginger here, with
Now that-
some
that's
servo
a-
motors, and
that's
it actually,
that's a definite Shark Tank winner right
Yeah.
there because it's made in America, it's half the price.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean this.
And what's not to love?
Well,
Exactly.
and the premise of the design too was that the wheels or the base are something that you can purchase and apply to your favorite skateboard.
Right.
So if you're a skateboard
Right.
connoisseur, you can keep your favorite
It's easy to
skateboard and
fix.
still make it-
Exactly.
Yeah.
Switch out parts.
Mhm.
This is like, the old style customable computers. That's what
Yeah.
when they first started with Apple,
Yeah.
that was the whole plan, is to customize your computer per user and switch out parts.
That's
Right.
well, yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
and
well,
so
interchangeable. Yes.
That's interchangeable, so
Yeah.
like you can start 3D printing those wheels pretty soon.
Yes.
Well, actually, we have right now something we're very close to being done and ready for the expo. One of the needs that one of the upper elementary students identified was that she has, in her PE classes, has noticed that our gym floor is very dusty, and so making lateral movements can be a bit challenging,
Right.
especially for the over 40 crowd. So
It's
she
nice that
has.
she's thinking of you.
Yes, well, we do have a faculty student.
Not
coming
you in
up, so-
particular.
Oh, no,
I'm
it's
sure
me.
you're not 40.
Definitely.
But I'm just saying, generic
Yes, those
adults.
out there,
Right.
less flexible than they used to be. So she has created a robotic Swiffer
Oh,
and is
okay.
working on the attachments, but she 3D printed the chassis and the wheels for the
Right.
robot. So
Right.
that we are actually moving into now that we have a printer, 3D printing parts of our robots
Right.
ourselves.
And again, that's actually more applicable specifically for your gym use
Yeah.
as opposed to other commercial products out there to sweep the floor, because this has a special Swiffer pad that collects dust, and it's applicable only for dust as opposed to other
Yeah.
things like Cheerios.
Oh
or,
yeah,
Yes.
yep.
which is excellent to know.
Yeah. So this is last year. This was some of these were from last year, and some
Great.
this year we're because middle school students are it's a 2-year program.
Uh-huh.
This year's version of Shark Tank is one that focuses more on empathy, and it's a social impact design challenge. So instead of designing for a consumer need, students are designing innovations to address a social need. And instead of sharks, looking at business plans and in more exacting ways than others, we will have a donor board and we will simply be looking for the percentage of donors that would like to give to the project and the cause that it's attempting to assist.
Very interesting.
So,
Wow, that's excellent. That's very creative.
It's really exciting as well because
Yeah.
beyond the innovation, the students are learning some of the basics of a proposal and how to make their innovations reality by looking
Right.
at things like how do we produce this,
Right.
how much are we going to sell it for,
Right.
how do we market the product and who are our customers.
Right.
And I know you're the outreach person, but one of the things that's been, we're really lucky is we have, one, Katie is a resource, as well as we've had a tremendous support from our parent and board community for both of these projects. People donating their time, their feedback, their expertise in working with students because many are successful, MBAs, to really give them the kind of hints that they need to develop their products and their plans better. So really fortunate to have that.
Wow, and give me a couple of quick examples of the empathy related causes that have come up. What are some proposals that kids have?
A pair of one seventh grade team, actually, if I can back up.
Yeah.
I polled the community to see if anybody had connections to different causes or issues that they felt that they could serve as a firsthand information, firsthand piece of research. So one of our Spanish teacher, Senora Feder, she has a family member who works in Argentina in some of the more rural villages where infrastructure, education are difficult, and they have unique challenges. So we had a 7th grade team that connected with her family member and is designing an app that, as well as a wearable. At this point, it looks like a wearable 3D printed QR code, but we're not sure where that's going to go. For these children who, we all know here the importance of the ages 0 to 5 in terms of setting children up for success in education. Many of these children are not having the kinds of exposure that students in, say, the Metro West would have to reading and pre-reading. So these students are, but also in their towns, the churches are really central to administering any sort of education. So, and many of those churches are staffed by volunteers, and NGOs. So. This app would be something that would have levels of curriculum that any untrained volunteer could administer to students, and that these wearable QR codes will be things that could be, as a student shows up at a facility, could be scanned right immediately. The students' records are easily accessible. Where are they in this program? And so,
what do they need? And
so
what
it's really
level are they
plug and
at for learning?
Exactly. And so those students are working with that young man, as well as some of our primary teachers, to understand what kind of pre-reading skills would be important to be able to deliver in a curriculum.
Right,
So
and what is possible in a limited or restricted environment.
Exactly, yeah.
Very
So that's
interesting.
one.
How cool.
And we have another, a pair of 8th grade team that came up with this and been thinking about this. Actually, it's some of the same members of the skateboard team. They have moved on to wanting to design a solution for families who have a family member in early stages of dementia, understanding that we have an aging population, that elder care is becoming increasingly costly, and the higher percentage of our population is going to be dealing with these kinds of issues, and that many residents, many people would prefer to stay in their homes as long as possible, both for fiscal and for comfort reasons. So they want to use something from, what is the thing from Amazon called again? The Echo. Sorry.
She's the outreach
Right.
coordinator.
Yes. Thank you.
She's doing her job.
They're using that as some part of that technology to create an information system that coordinates information as caregivers might come to the home, as well as from family members that can also be remotely controlled and monitored. How much has this person been eaten today? What is the temperature in their home? Is their oven off? That ideally would help keep these people in their home. So they're working with a connection that I have from the Natick Service Council, who has connections with folks who are in assisted living facilities, to think about what are some of the issues that would come up that would sort of help people stay in their homes longer.
So I have a very important question for both of you. Do either of you get much sleep? Just,
Well, I mean, we also have kids.
A little bit,
I mean, it's
yeah.
not, I wouldn't say it's due to the school.
yeah, it's awfully busy there.
Yeah,
Wow,
absolutely. But
But
it's very
we do start
exciting.
texting around 6
Yeah,
in the
okay,
morning. so
okay,
it's-
sounds good.
Yeah.
I'd be alarmed if it were 4 in the morning, but
I know.
6, okay, well.
But it's really
Yeah.
amazing and exciting to see how you could move
Yes.
from something like this, which was one
Right.
of the first things that you showcased in the design lab 2
Right.
years ago, to these very complex
Complex,
issues
right.
very quickly
Right.
with young
Right.
children.
Young
Yeah.
children, yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're the ones who have the best ideas.
They do.
Because they really ask a lot of questions of, well, why not?
Yeah.
Why can't we do that?
Right.
What's the problem here?
Exactly.
That's exactly right.
Excellent. Well, thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for coming in. This has
Thank
been
you.
such a
Thank you.
treat. And just so you know, no one is allowed to say cut in the middle of a STEM conversation.
Oh, okay.
Just wanted to
I almost said cut on myself on
wanted
that
to tell
last
you
one.
that.
I lost the echo. I
Yeah,
couldn't think
I've
of the
banned
word,
those
but yeah.
privileges. There's just not allowed.
It was close.
Thank you. Such a
Thank
it's such a
you.
pleasure. Thank
Thanks
you
so
for
much for
coming in today,
having
and,
us.
and we're
Yeah,
going to
absolutely.
really look forward to seeing Riverbend at the
Yes.
Wellesley STEM Expo
Yes, please come see us.
this
Yeah.
April, April
you.
8th.
Yes.
Montessori makers.
That's true. All right, we'll see you on April 8th at the Wellesley High School,
Yes.
10 a.m.
Absolutely.
We'll be there. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you again.
Thank you.
It's amazing.